So it's Friday morning and it's time to join Pat McCart. I suppose you'd say hands across the border. Would that be how we describe it?
Well, it is. Well, you're near Belfast. I'm in Donegal.
Uh,
There's
so
a
good
border
long
somewhere.
arms.
We've got very long arms, exactly. Morning to you, Jude.
Good morning to you too, Pat. Are you well this morning?
Grand. I see the sun's come out this morning. It was actually, Jesus, yesterday, Jude, was one of the coldest. Actually, we put on the heating again yesterday, the first time in about 3 months.
Was it really?
I felt it, and I just torrential rain basically all day.
I didn't. Oh, well, we got a fair bit of rain, but I went out for a run. It was actually beginning to rain, mild rain, really.
Yeah.
But no, it was still quite warm. Anyway, enough of the weather report. Let's get down to the business of the nation. Let's start with a kind of an intriguing one, and it's this special criminal court in the south. Now, the whole outcry in the various newspapers, especially the Irish Times, is that Sinn Féin walked out of the Dáil before the vote was taken on whether to renew the license for these special criminal courts. That is, I guess, is it 3 judges or 1 judge?
It's 3 judges.
3 judges.
3 judges, and in most cases,
And the claim is that it's needed to deal with these criminal gangs, drug lords, and these family feuds within them. But of course, it's a sensitive topic, isn't it, for Sinn Féin? Because Sinn Féin were always very opposed to it over the decades because, well, not surprisingly, because it was Republicans who were on the receiving end of it.
Yeah.
What's your own thoughts on special criminal courts, Pat?
Jude, it's a very complex, and I can see why it's causing a lot of problems. And in fact, I have very mixed views on it myself. I'm not sure anybody's got it 100% right. The special criminal courts were set up to deal with the provos. Let's get that clear way back in the Troubles. And there was a process there. Like a lot of people simply weren't when a lot of provos in the past for various reasons. There were claims of intimidation of ordinary courts or of juries. And then there was the other thing, there were claims of sympathetic juries letting provos off. So the government back in the day introduced a special criminal court. So there's the foundation of it. Right, then you come, you see, then it moves on. We then fast forward 20, 30 years, and like you look down in Limerick where there was open season gangs were totally intimidating the local community. And so, and in last year, 2019, in Dundalk, like there was a young fella, there was drug war. There was a young fella, 2 or 3 bits of them were found in different places.
Oh yes.
And like these were heavy duty criminals. And the only way the Gardaí say they can deal with them, and the Limerick thing was special criminal courts because these guys were intimidating jurors and ordinary courts. So there's that. But then, Jude, let's revert again. For provos or Republicans, the court, the special criminal court stinks in their eyes because they saw it as a conveyor belt. Once you were brought before a judge or the judges at a criminal court and you were labelled a provo, you were going straight to jail no matter what defense you had. And Jude, that is one of the problems. You see, once you're taken by the Gardaí and it's decided that you're going to a special criminal court, there's very little chance of you getting off. And Jude, it's not just Sinn Féin have got problems with this. Amnesty International have got problems with it. The Irish Court, or Irish Council of Civil Liberties have got problems with it.
Do you have problems with it?
Do
you have problems with it?
Jude, to an extent, I do. By the way, Jude, see, when it comes to organised criminals and all the rest, I have no sympathy for those guys. And if it needs a special criminal court, but the whole concept, we should all be before what is a judge and jury of our peers. And there's something I don't like the idea that there's a sort of railroad system in place in the country. Now I know the reasons for it, and I've mixed views on it very much. But Jude, I would much prefer we live in a society where there was one law for all and one law for just one law for all.
I would agree with that. I accept the fact that, I mean, these gangs coming in and shooting each other in broad daylight with heavy artillery, that's awful. And they do seem to be out of control, despite the fact that the formidable Michael McDowell was Minister for Justice for some years. It still seems to rattle on. Although I haven't heard that much about them recently. I think it comes down to, as you say, a simple question. Are you going to have one law for certain people and a different law, or a different form of the law application in another case? I don't think it's beyond, this. Let's go back to this Soldier F.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the identity of Soldier F,
Yeah.
and yet he is going to appear, but nobody's in a sweat that he might have his identity discovered or anything.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Jude, he's not going to appear at the special criminal court.
No,
He's going to
for
appear in
sure.
open court.
For sure. So I think that it's not beyond the wit of man or woman to have jury courts, and if they need to, have the jury courts, veiled from the general public. They can meet. There's all sorts of places they can meet where it wouldn't arouse the knowledge of the people who are being tried. I just think they have. It's an easy one. It's really saying we'll really put these guys away. Now, even they do deserve it. They also deserve a full trial, fair trial. And I don't think it's this notion of superiority. I mean, if they can protect the judges, why can't they protect the jury?
The jury, yeah. Well, Mark, Jude, the Sinn Féin have made submissions to. There's a review of this criminal justice, and I don't think they've reported it. Martin Kenny, who's the justice spokesman for Sinn Féin, said they've made a. No, he doesn't say exactly what their review is, but they have made a submission to the review, and he said what they're looking for is robust laws that protect everybody and are forced equally. Now, of course, there's an election going on in Dublin.
Exactly. Snap. It's exactly what I was thinking.
So it's all come out now. Now, in fairness, Sinn Féin walked out. They abstained. I think Sinn Féin are a bit like the same position as me and you are. They see that if, the drug gangs in Limerick and in Drogheda, that these guys so far are the Limerick guys have all been basically wiped out. They're all in jail, and the violence has stopped. So it shows the court is effective, and the same pretty much in Drogheda. But the other side of the story, the civil liberties issue, Jude, I'm repeating myself, but here's the thing: if you're charged and brought before the central or special criminal court, your chances of getting off are very, very slight. The very fact that you're deemed to be such a danger to the state that you're brought before the special criminal court, there's nearly a fast track to behind bars.
Well, if that's the case, shouldn't Sinn Féin have had the courage of their principles and stayed and voted against it?
I'm going to just back that other one. It's not a very popular thing in the Republic of Ireland, even among some of their own supporters. Like a lot of people see what's going on in Drogheda and Dundalk and in Limerick. In recent years, the last decade, there've been serious, heavy-duty violence. There was murder on a grand scale down in Limerick until the armed response unit started taking these guys out.
But I don't think there's anybody quarreling with the fact that there are these terrible gangs that are running around, and that there should definitely be something done about it. But I don't think that necessarily means that you have to follow the course of the special criminal court. I'm suggesting there are other alternatives and other ways of maintaining the traditional judge and jury.
Jude, let's get this clear. It's very simple. Sinn Féin are now going more and more mainstream, and this abstaining on this a couple of years ago, I think Gerry Adams, I think about 2015, 2016, said there should be the normal rule of law, and I think they voted against the special. Now I'm open to correction on that.
Yeah,
I think they voted against it, but they're now abstaining, and because, Jude, they are now the biggest vote getter in the Republic of Ireland, and this is a subject that is a vote loser, because a lot of people, even amongst their own supporters, will be saying, no, you got this wrong.
Yeah. I think it certainly is. What it really is about is this Dublin-based South election.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And it's being highlighted now by people like Leo Varadkar and so on. And to remind people that the Sinn Féin, of course, had a history going back to the Provos, where they themselves were put away, and can we still trust them?
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
No, Jude, I think that plays great with the the sort of, it's like meat to the sort of the Fine Gael people.
Yeah.
But it doesn't play all that well with the young people.
Yeah.
I think that they don't even understand half the time what that's about.
Yeah, it's kind of infuriating. But maybe you have to choose how and when you fight your battles. But I find it really annoying. It seems to me, as you've indicated yourself, that there really should be one law for everybody, and not have some.
Well, Jude, it's a very easy thing. It's a very easy thing to say for Leo Varadkar, and I think there's some guy Brown, he's a junior minister, said that goes to prove they're soft on terrorism and soft on crime. Like that's, you know, it's a cheap, easy one to make.
Cliche of the first
Yeah.
order. Still with this question of law and order, Pat, an item you've drawn to our attention, I think it's in the Irish Times this morning as well, that I didn't look at it as carefully as you did, but I gathered it is a question of 999 calls. And there was only 20. Now, was it 20,000 calls, 999 calls?
Jude, it's very complicated. I read a thing in the RT website yesterday. I'm still confused about what they're investigating. Sorry, I'll rephrase this, and it's still not. I'm not certain I've got it right. They're investigating 20,000 999 calls to ensure that they got the correct response. But they're saying that there's at least 3,000 calls where the response wasn't appropriate. Now, Jude, here's the thing about it. During the lockdown, I've heard people from the Rape Crisis Centre and from the domestic violence sector saying during the lockdown there was a serious increase of incidents of both serious sexual assault and violence, and it looks like the
in the home, in people's home.
The home, in the home, mainly in the home,
And
that a lot of this, the Gardaí, there was Drew Harris yesterday apologised, so I presume there's quite a serious malfunction in the response from the Gardaí. There's here I wrote down 3,000 calls to the Gardaí about domestic violence, missing persons, or health issues, where are health issues where it seems the 999 response was inadequate. Then that's putting it mildly. Now they're saying so far they have found no adverse consequences. I think that's the word they used. So Jude. But hey, here's the bottom line. I'm dropping all this thing. Say tomorrow morning, you're a woman somewhere, and somebody comes in and he's drunk, and he's beating you about the place and whatever, and seriously sexual assault, and you ring 999, and the guy gets your name wrong, address wrong, or whatever. Gee, but that is surely in any civilized society, when anybody calls 999. That should be treated as a matter of urgency until it's discovered that it isn't an emergency.
Well, tell me this. Is it a question of them simply getting the name wrong or getting the address wrong or bungling around? Or is it that they see these cases as being domestic matters, let them fight it out themselves, and they're exaggerating the importance of it?
There seems to be an element of the second, of the latter, Dr. Collins.
See, that's really alarming, that.
That
really is alarming.
Yeah. When the chief constable apologizes publicly, Jude, for their failures, you must take it as being quite serious.
I mean, it's something that traditionally has been a problem in these islands, shall we say, where domestic violence was seen almost as part of a marriage.
Yeah, I remember very clearly. It's an odd thing. You're about 8 or 9, and I remember being on the streets of Letterkenny, and there's a guy. On a Friday evening, he used to always get past, and I mean, he'd be coming down maybe in a winter's evening, maybe in November, and there was a Harris's pub, and he'd get him, and he'd leave, and he would be roaring and shouting. Everybody knew, and he went home and beat the crap out of his wife. And yet it was just accepted. This is normal Friday night. And I remember years later thinking, good God, that woman must have been living in trepidation. You'd see her with maybe a black eye or something the next day or something, and we never thought anything, and nobody ever done anything about it. It was sort of like a silent crime.
I remember reading years and years ago, George Orwell writing on this subject in an essay. And he said that in the north of England, you'd have women coming out on a Monday morning proudly displaying the black eye that their husband gave them. That it was a very ambiguous kind of response that these women had towards it. That it was seen in a way as... I don't know what, the manliness of their men.
Their man was a real man. He knows how to.
Maybe it ties in with the way we used to respond when the subject of corporal punishment came up as kids, where we'd vie with each other to see which of us could tell stories about how tough our dad or our ma was with us. And what size of respect he is.
I'll not name him, but there was a certain colleague that I used to work with, and he went to the Christian Brothers. And I remember him saying to me one day, he says, they were chatting about, corporal punishment in school. He says, never did me any harm. And I looked across at him and I was thinking to myself, if only we could see ourselves as others see us.
It didn't do me any harm apart from the dizzy spells and the psychological damage. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's. I think you're concluding from this that it isn't a question of incompetence. It's on the part of the police. It's a question of they're simply disregarding stuff that they
It
should
looks
be.
that way, Jude. No, I'm open to correction that. But
That,
like they're revising or re-examining 19, 20,000 calls to see was there an adequate response. But no, Jude, that's the principle of the thing. You know,
yeah,
I keep coming back to this. Can you imagine you're in danger, you're being hurt and all that,
yeah.
and the very last thing you can get, maybe crawl to a phone and call 999, and you get no response.
That's terrible. That really is
Yeah.
awful. But I mean, Drew Harris is the Garda Commissioner. He will sort that out. Take it from me. I know
Yes.
Drew, and Drew will do the job. Okay.
You
Right.
know
You,
Drew,
we've
but
had to,
does Drew know you?
That's like they used to put up on the walls in Derry. Wasn't
Yeah, and Derry,
Aye.
Raymond, I know Raymond Gilbert, but he didn't know me. He put about 30 people in prison. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got two of your stories now. I want to go to one of mine.
Right.
This is in the Irish Times, and it's to do with one woman called Laurel Woods. Does that ring a bell to you?
No, go ahead.
Laurel Woods is an athlete, and Laurel Woods will be competing, it seems, in the women's weightlifting in
Good God.
Tokyo
I know
for
where you're
New
going with
Zealand.
this. Yeah.
And the trouble is that Laurel Woods is a transgender person. Laurel Woods
Yeah.
started out life as a male,
Yeah.
had all sorts of hormone treatment and surgery and so on, and now there's a woman. So the question is that fair? Because it is a simple physical fact, and the article, I think, lists it, that men are stronger, faster, and so on than women. Purely
Yeah.
physical thing.
Yeah.
But if somebody who was a man has transgender attention and then emerges as a woman, they're still going to have an advantage. So, some people would claim they're still going to have that advantage. So it doesn't make sense to have them going in for competitions in the women's category
Yeah.
any more than it makes sense to have men going in. Well, no, that's I was going to say.
Don't go there, Jim.
I was going to say men going into women's toilets, but if you're transgender, the claim would be that you're now a woman and therefore you actually go into the women's toilets. Anyway, forget about the toilets. Let's focus on the Olympic Games. What do you think, Pat? Should
no, Jude, I think no. You know, so like I'm very sympathy with people if you're confused about your gender and you sort of realize that you're ended up. I've every sympathy in there, and I actually know people in that situation. But Jude, if you're talking about that, well, I knew 1 year ago.
Yeah. Well, were they transgender or were they people?
Well, what he was born a man and he used to walk around Derry dressed as a woman. So you work that out.
Oh, well, that's a slightly different thing. That's a slightly different.
No. I think I'm not sure what happened. Jude, I disappeared out of my life, and he could have gone to England and could have got maybe living as a woman properly. I just don't know. But I do remember the guy, well, the girl actually now, I suppose. Anyway, bottom line, Jude, if you're 6 foot a man and you're up against and you transgender and suddenly you get the Olympics as a weightlifter, come on, Jude, that's to me that's like somebody taking steroids. I'll put it like this, I'll go ridiculous now. Usain Bolt, put a dress on him in some kind, and I'm not being offensive, just making it, and he would leave the women's champion and say the 100 meters, he would leave her about 20-30 meters behind and a 10-second race. Jude, how can that be fair?
But we were talking now, we're talking about is that we're not going to have Usain Bolt, the man.
No, but I'm saying the same idea applies. Like a weightlifter, like a man who's a former weightlifter, transgenders, and goes in and.
I'm not a man who's hold it, Pat. You said a man who's a former weightlifter.
well, was he a weightlifter? I don't know. Was.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean.
Let's say he was a weightlifter, and then transgender, and says now I'm a woman, and I'm now a female weightlifter.
Yeah.
Like, Jim, come on, that's not fair. That's not equal competition.
Well, you see, it seems to me either accept or you don't accept that a person who was a man becomes a woman through hormone treatment and surgery and so on. And if you accept that they're a woman, then surely they should be a woman in all respects. They should be treated as a woman. They should be able to fill in forms if they're female or whatever. And likewise, in athletics,
Yeah,
sports,
yeah.
darts, or whatever it may be, should they not consistently be treated as
Well, you
equal?
see, I don't think a big issue in darts. Right, I remember reading a sports science some time ago. They
Hmm.
reckoned that the world's number one tennis player, if the world's male tennis player played the world's number one female tennis player, she would be lucky to get a point in a three-set game,
Yeah,
on the basis that the men of serving to her would be twice as fast.
yeah,
They'd be
yeah.
faster around the course and so on, and that it wouldn't be a fair contest. Now, Jude, women in swimming can be very close to him. Women as jockeys can be, in fact, some of them are
Yeah,
proving better than men.
yeah, yeah.
Darts, thank you. But see, when it comes to physical strength, or I think in the rodeos in America, there's a couple of things they won't let women do now out of sheer experience. You know, that roping a calf and pulling it down.
Oh, yeah,
If
yeah.
they allow men to do it. They say women are neither powerful enough nor fast enough, and a lot of them were getting injured. So it's becoming a health and safety issue. So, Jude, I don't know where you stop with this, but to answer your question, no, I think it's totally unfair that a man who transgenders into a female then takes part in a women's competition. Like, Jude, like that doesn't strike me as fair at all to the other
You see,
competitors.
but you see, we were talking earlier, Pat, about these special criminal courts. And we were saying
Yeah,
there should be a consistency that
yeah,
everybody, faces the same circumstances, not
yeah.
pick and choose. Would the same thing not apply to this? That if you're saying, if you accept the fact that a guy who was born a man has had a transgender operations and is now a woman, as he sees it,
Yeah,
that is
no, Jude.
society sees
If
it,
the
be
if the medical
consistent how
people
you
turned around
treat
and
them.
said that this person has all the attributes of a man, etc., 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 doing
No, not all the
psychologically,
attributes of a man, Pat.
no,
They do have different. They've got hormone
uh,
suppression and all that sort of stuff.
but it's still basically things like weightlifting. I think it would be totally unfair. Like if you're a pretty big, powerful man and you transgender over into a
Yeah,
female and
yeah,
start
yeah,
lifting weights, I think you're right away. It's not a fair contest, and
yeah.
that's my argument.
Actually, this is quite a history. I don't know if you remember back to your boyhood, Pat, which in your case is an awful long time ago, where they used to be Russian shot putters, women
Oh, geez,
shot
the two
putters.
sisters. Apparently they used to shave every morning, and then when sex tests came in, they disappeared. I remember them as well. There was a certain Czechoslovakian 800-meter runner. Good God, she was the nearest thing to Kevin Keegan ever seen. Wee short, stocky, and muscles and no boobs. And I thought she could have played centre half for Liverpool. Never mind run for Czechoslovakia.
Are you suggesting? What are you suggesting there?
I'm suggesting they should have checked out.
I bet they did. I bet they did, though.
I'm sure
Surely
they did.
there's
Yeah.
always a standard sort
No,
of.
I remember the two Russians. There were two sisters allegedly, but one of the guys, I remember somebody claiming that they shaved every morning. So they said, so much for sisters.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot a wee bit here. How do you view this whole transgender thing, where people who are born one sex, like a male or a female,
Yeah,
say that they want to identify themselves as the other sex or the other
yeah,
gender, as they say now?
yeah.
How do you feel that's fine and good, or do you feel oh, God, or not necessarily God, but nature made them one way and they're making themselves another way?
Jude, I have a book up there somewhere called Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. It's about if somebody was born one sex and then sort of kept hidden it. Jude, here, I watched a documentary and quite a few years ago, and there was a guy on, and somebody asked him that very question you're after asking me. He says, "Let me tell you how serious." He says, "If you think I'm joking," he says, "would you get your woolly cut off in the morning? Do you think it's funny?"
Hmm.
He says, "That's how serious I take it." So he says, I sort of thought, that is serious. If you're willing to go down that route, you are definitely, it's not a joke. It's not something, you're willing to sort of suffer, and you're changing your. So he says, most men wouldn't consider it in a million years. So he says, why do you think I'm doing it? He says, in my head, he says, I am female. And after that, I'm a liberal, Jude. I believe in people, allowing people to, and I think if they go and see psychiatrists and see medical people, and at the end of it, they can convince those people that the professionals that look, in their head, they should would be more comfortable in the opposite sex.
Uh,
If then they still want to do it, yeah, I think they should be allowed to do it. Now, Jude, I think I'll be very careful before I take that final step, and I would think I'd make sure that all avenues had been explored before I take that final step.
Yeah, I would say that would certainly be the case. I'm
Yeah,
just thinking, when you do this, and I think you're right. You say bring it down to your own life. One
no,
of your sons or one of my sons came to me and
yeah,
said, I want to become a woman. I am a
uh,
woman. Uh,
yeah,
to tell you the truth, that distressed me a great deal. Now, you've said that when these
yeah,
people go through these various psychiatric tests and so on, I didn't know that people had to do that in order
yeah,
to have these operations. I'm not
yeah.
maybe wrong.
You
Besides
do.
which fact, the parents have to, at an early stage, engage in testosterone suppression before
Yeah.
puberty. Uh, and again, I can't see that they would have gone through a whole lot of, the parents would have gone through a whole lot of tests or the kid before they would do this. Uh,
Yeah.
that kind of thing worries me.
It
Maybe
worries
I'm
me
just
too, Jude.
old-fashioned.
No, no, Jude. No, I listened to RT about a year ago. And there was this whole thing apparently around puberty. A lot of both boys and girls sometimes can become very confused about their sexuality. And like there's this, there's usually the young boys want to dress up, and there's a girl want to put on trousers and sort of strut around like a young fella. And like there, that's a rarity, but it's, they said there are quite a few, and that we should be very sort of loath to sort of go down a road with them. That we should let it work its way out. And Jude, it's one of those subjects, Jude. I don't think there's a definitive answer for it, right or wrong. Now, Jude, to use your analogy, if tomorrow I have three sons, and if one of them came tomorrow morning and says, "I want to become a woman," Jude, I would be more than distressed. I think I'd be, beyond that. It would sort of worry me beyond that, way beyond that. So, but having said that, if there's somebody so distressed in their own mind that they think they're in the wrong body, who am I to say, no, I know better than you?
Well, I'm not sure about that because, I mean, you're right, yeah, and perhaps I'd agree with you, but I can see, for example, you have circumstances where young people harm themselves,
Yeah,
self-harming. I
yeah,
never heard of that when I was a kid, but now self-harming is pretty common. You
yeah.
know, to be honest, I think that people shouldn't be allowed to harm themselves because to me it indicates there's something confused and dangerous going on in their
Yeah.
heads. Um, if you're going to stop
But,
people
but, but
from,
hold on, Judd, back you up, Dr. Holmes. People shouldn't be allowed to harm themselves. How do you
no,
stop that?
no, I don't know how you do it, but you could do your best. You
Yeah,
do your best. I don't. Maybe you couldn't, and
no,
therefore
no,
there'd be no point in having a law.
no, it
Um,
wouldn't be allowed, Judd. Doing something, Judd. Remember, there was a law against suicide. If you're
fine. That's
dead,
right.
and
That's
like
right.
that was one of the stupidest laws in history.
Yeah. Can't
Yeah,
apply it,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
does. It has. It's very distressing to think about it.
absolutely.
Whether it's self harm or whether it's transgender.
Yeah,
Uh, at the back of my mind, it seems to have established itself so firmly now that
mm,
I beginning to feel that I'm just too old to understand or to think in a reasonable or rational fashion on the matter because all my life I've been, you've learned to think a certain way. Okay,
Judd,
let's leave that unhappy transgender
yeah,
subject and let's go down a straightforward man-woman subject. And this is on
yes,
breakingnews.ie. Does
yeah.
the name Cola Denangelo, Gina Cola Denangelo ring a bell for you?
And by the way, easy for you to say a name like that. That's about three.
Oh, it's
That's
such a
about
beautiful
that's about
name.
three. Don't ever
Such a
apply for a
lovely
job as a
name.
newsreader. That's about their third attempt at it.
Gina
Dr.
Cola
Collins, I wouldn't have.
Denangelo.
Called it Delangelo. I wouldn't have heard of her until you mentioned the fact that Nick Hancock has got himself in bother, and I read the
Good night
thing.
yourself.
So
This is the one. Let's explain to both our viewers. This relates to Matt Hancock, who is married and has several children.
three.
Around his 15 years. There's
Yeah,
supposed to be allegedly a picture of him kissing Gina Coldenangelo, who is a
yeah,
non-executive director in his department and whom he
yeah.
knew from his university days.
Days at Oxford. Yes, yes. Yeah.
I see.
I remember Dominic Cummings said you couldn't trust Hancock, that he's a liar and a cheat. His wife might now agree with Dominic Cummings.
Well,
Like,
there's an Irish phrase, isn't there? Something like Kiro Gela, twixt one dung beetle to know another.
dung beetle, exactly. Well, true. But the son, apparently the son have caught him on the security camera and an embrace with Miss if you say her name, and apparently
called an Angelo.
They know called the Angelo. Obviously, she's of Italian origin, but anyway, apparently the son has also got quotes from some colleagues. They said, "Oh, that's they regularly seen an embrace." But I love the line. She works in a department where there's supposed to be 6 feet or what is it, 2 meters social distancing, and they said clearly they were not social distancing.
Yeah. Well, listen, tell me this. See, my temptation is to say this story shouldn't actually be in the newspapers.
It shouldn't.
This is the relationship between him and this woman and his wife.
It's a matter for himself.
It's a matter for them. It's nothing to do.
But here, hold on. No, Dr. Collins, I agree with you totally. And it shouldn't be. And in fact, if you give me the choice one, but here's one defense of it. These guys are such hypocrites, telling everybody else how to live their lives and about moral values, and they tell how they're people of integrity, and etc., etc., etc. And no, Labour Party and various others, it's usually money. See, when it comes to the Tory Party, it's usually sex. Or if you check every Tory, like what John Major had it off with your woman Curry, Cecil Parkinson had it off with some member journalist. You can go on, and John Profumo going back in the day. So here's and Boris, bonking Boris, like nobody even knows how many children he has, and yet these are the people who are ruling the country and telling how integrity and you take my word and my word is my bond. That's the thing,
But maybe Pat, this thing about your man being married but having an affair, or I don't know, having an affair or not.
No, I don't know.
It looks a bit like it. It looks like it. That's his own business. And besides, most people nowadays, do we really condemn people that have?
No, we don't. And by the way, it's none of my business what any person does. And he without sin cast the first stone.
But just treated that, Pat, for a moment. Is that something that people nowadays would say is a bad thing? Because I think society has got to the stage where they say, well, do what you feel like.
Well, there's an element to it. There's an awful lot of hypocrisy in the past about these sort of things. There's no doubt about it. But I think nowadays people are sort of saying, look, wait a minute, people's personal lives, are their personal lives, and it shouldn't interfere in their public lives. It's only when these people, it's hypocrisy. I don't think anybody most people feel sorry for Hancock's wife. That's about the only thing in the ear. And it's look, let's be honest. Look, Lady Diana or Princess Diana. Like, there's very little doubt after Charles went off with what do you call her, Camilla. Like, she had several affairs and people knew about them. So what does it matter? It's not our business. I really don't care what the hell they do. The only part, I'll repeat myself, is this sort of thing. The hypocrisy of these people really stand clear.
Well, I don't know that they're, I would be fair to them now. They don't preach be faithful to your partner or your wife or your husband. They preach, straight talking, hard work, an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, etc., community, etc. But I don't think I've ever heard them preaching on.
Well, Jude, you're right, Jude. Like 50 years ago, Boris Johnson he's had numerous affairs. He's had numerous children. He's had at least 6, 7 children by 3 different partners. He's been sacked from 2, 3 jobs because of lying and cheating. And he's the British Prime Minister, and he's very popular.
Yeah. So maybe society has changed to the point where it's fine for Matt Hancock.
It's not maybe, it has.
Well, I'm just saying maybe that it would approve of Matt Hancock allegedly in close encounter with Gina Angelo. I just said that because I wanted to get saying that.
I'll give one more time. But sure, look, Jude, remember they used to describe John Major as a grey man? After it was disclosed he had an affair with Edwina Curry, his popularity went up.
I'm tempted to crack a joke here, but I will not do it. You have tempted me, but I'm not going to do it. Okay, back to your list, Pat. You've drawn attention to the story of Hong Kong's Apple Daily. This newspaper, the last free publication, has been shut down by China. And I detect from the way you reported this to me that you are pretty strongly opposed to this censorship.
Jude, I was watching Newsnight. It just came out. I know I flicked some nights and I couldn't be embarrassed watching. But I've been a journalist all of my working days. On came and I think the Chinese. Hey, I'm always on the side of underdog, and I seriously think in Ireland we should have a serious look at our relationship with China. It's a totalitarian state. There's no doubt about that. And they made promises of civil liberties and freedom of the press for 50 years. And this week it was completed after what, 20, 25 years. And Jude, it's a nasty sort of thing. Basically, you're not allowed to. Jude, there's something wrong in any society when you're not allowed to criticize your rulers, and that's suppression. You're not allowed your freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression, and they're trying to say this paper was a danger to the state. No, it was not. It was a danger to the ruling party. And basically what's happened now is China has taken over Hong Kong, and the days of freedom of speech or criticizing the Chinese government are gone. And, no matter whether you support China, don't support China, freedom of speech. Jude, if you read some of the stuff, it was very mild. It wasn't sort of, they were criticizing this sort of clampdown and so on by the authorities. And the journalists were getting arrested. The editor was arrested. There was one of the reporters were arrested. 500 police went into Apple Daily's and sealed their offices, froze their bank accounts, and so on. So much for democracy and so much for Chinese word of honor.
Well, let me put this. That it may be that we would disapprove of the civil liberties aspect of all that, and your point about freedom of expression. But of course, there wasn't freedom of expression here or in your jurisdiction either for years and years and years. And people said, jolly good idea too. But the whole bloody lot of them in jail.
Well, no, but you see the difference. Now, I worked as a newspaper editor. And one of the great things about being editor of the Derry Journalist, Jude, we were one of the, and I'm saying it with pride, I'll run up the flag. We refused point blank to follow the rules of the British state. And anybody wants to check it. Sometimes we even went against maybe even the community in which we was served. Like I remember one stage saying, "Why are you giving publicity to the provost and so on?" Because they represented a lot of people. And okay, Section 31 applied in the South. And Thatcher said, "Don't give terrorists the oxygen of publicity." Now that applied to the broadcast media. It didn't apply to us, didn't apply to the print media. And I am proud of the role we played in standing up against things like that.
And I admire you for it, Pat. But the very fact that you're mentioning it suggests to me that there wasn't, every newspaper wasn't following the stories in the way that they should have been.
No, that's definitely. I agree.
Many other newspapers, more sort of national organs, were following a government line.
Absolutely.
Or even helping to determine a government line.
Jude, and Derry, sorry for cutting across you, Jude, but see, I'll give you a simple example. When the troubles broke out and at the start, there was 2 press officers in RUC in Derry, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
See, after a couple of years, there were something about 7, 8 guys working in the press office. Half the time, Jude, when there was an incident, the BBC or Daily Express or Daily Mail, the reporters didn't bother their ass getting up of their seats going out. They rang what happened there and took the RUC, and that set the parameters of a lot of the and here the famous one about the Europa Hotel. At one stage in the early days of the trouble, there's 20 or 30 journalists, and one of them would go out and they would come back and they would sort of pull the report. That's how and they were that lazy. Because a bomb goes off. What's new? And the cops won't tell you anything. And then of course the cops, and after an hour, 3 people died last night when a bomb exploded outside. Whatever. And and it's that's freedom. But no, the Chinese, it's much more subtle than that, and it's much more overall. It's complete blanket suppression of yeah.
Well, let's put it like this, Pat. They're interfering with freedom of expression, but you bet your sweet life we shouldn't be thinking of ourselves as giving full. Well, I'm speaking as a man, for example. I am banned by the BBC.
Yeah.
Because I said something they didn't like.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Now, I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm not the only one, and maybe a lot of people are saying, thank God that bugger's not on again.
No,
But
Jude, you're 100% right. I agree with you. But Jude, see BBC, and I'm sorry for cutting across you again. The BBC, as long as you stay within the parameters of their terms of debate, you're perfectly acceptable. They say that, oh no, the BBC's freedom of expression. No, it hasn't. If you go step outside the parameters like you did, you're off because you don't play the game.
okay, now the important thing is this: we're agreed then that our system has many faults and continues to have many faults within it, its media system and reporting stuff.
Yeah.
As does China. Now you might say, oh, China's worse than us. Well, yeah, that's probably true. But at the same time, throwing stones and being in glass houses, that line needed to be said.
Yeah.
Even more basic than that is this. You're saying we should not be having trade, say, with China, or questioning our trade with China?
We should individually make a decision. I'm saying, I don't know if the governments will do it. I don't think they will.
Would you approve of the government making a decision?
Absolutely, Jude. I have a friend who goes into Aldi and Lidl, and he says anything he sees from Israel, he puts a wee sticker on it: "Do not buy."
Leave that aside. That's an emotional topic. Hold on a second now. If you were selling a car, or if you're buying a car, right?
Yeah.
And you knew the guy was the biggest bastard.
Yeah.
Who cheated on his wife, beat up his kids, but he was selling a car that was a damn good car, and you're getting a good price. Would you say you shouldn't buy it?
No.
I agree. I would agree completely with you. You would say, look, we're talking business here. I'm not condoning this man's life. I'm simply concerned, what service is he offering and what do I want it? And I think the same thing should apply. Or there's an argument to say the same thing should apply. The West is forever making judgments about people who have got systems that to them, so they say, look terrible. But I'll bet that those countries can look to us, look to America, to Britain, and say, what about that? What about that? What about that?
No, Jude, no. By the way, I take your point. Of course you do, and there's a lot of truth in it. But hey, see tomorrow morning, 500 cops don't arrive into the Irish News and arrest the editor, arrest the security correspondent, freeze their assets, and say because they're criticising Stormont.
Well, maybe they don't need to. Maybe they just stop people in other ways.
No, Jude, no. Like your point is, there's different levels. What happens here? Out of 10, there's probably 2, maybe 3. What's happening in China or Hong Kong is 10.
Yeah. Okay. I accept that. Although I do again, I'd counsel 2 things. One, that we be aware of the fact that we don't have a perfect system by any means.
No,
definitely. And secondly, the question of responding with not trading with people. It's a dubious one. I'd be kind of with you. Actually, I would be 100% with you in terms of buying Israeli products.
Yeah.
On the other hand, in general terms, I don't think we should allow our views on the morality of the seller to influence us when we come to buy something. So it's a difficult one. I suppose the most important thing to remember is we're not perfect, and views from outside, we look very imperfect. So we need to clear that up first before we start clearing other people. Okay, I think we've only time for one last one. So I think it's very important that I have the say in what it's going to be. Okay, this is from The Guardian yesterday, and it's an article with a heading, "Poo Overload." And it's a bit of fact. You know this sausage war that we were embarking on? The fact that frozen goods couldn't come in, and the war of the sausages, couldn't get frozen sausages. Terrible thing.
Yes.
It appears in this Guardian article headed "Poo Overload." There are in the north here 1.5 million pigs. The great majority. We're talking about literal pigs, not
not the other type.
The great majority of these pigs are sold to Britain in the form of sausages and stuff. But there's so much pig poo created for this. The international rules about pollution will force Northern Ireland to export this poo to 3 places named. I don't know why these poor people are going to receive this pig poo. Wexford, Norfolk, and Fife. So England, Ireland, England, and Scotland, and they're putting incinerators there, and right up. What do you think about that, Pat? Is it? Does it show?
Jude, I would love to know, of all the things that are happening in the world today. There's Britney Spears. There's that building in Miami that fell down.
Yeah.
Whatever. And you pick this one.
Well, listen, if you were next door to an incinerator of pig's poo, you would be screaming bloody blue murder. Because
Dude, there's a pig farm quite literally about 5 miles up the road, and I would hate to be living anywhere near it. Particularly on a summer's day when the breeze is blowing the wrong way. Jude, Jesus, stand clear. And in fact, I think they should get some sort of disturbance money for living beside it.
Well, no, absolutely.
But hold on, but Dr. Cons, back you up for a second. Why is our poo been exported to Wexford or Norfolk or wherever? Why aren't the good old people of our wee province getting rid of it themselves?
Because we don't have our personal incinerators, I guess. Because if we tried to build them, the people would say, like, we won't want any of your Free State incinerators been built near me. No.
But the people in Wexford not saying we don't want any of your
exactly.
Grey skies of Ulster piggery down here.
Well, they've obviously waded up and said, they've probably made a decision. Something has to be done with this stuff. And this is the only way to do it. We build an incinerator and we put the stuff into it. Whether that must be the best answer to it. It may not be the best, but it's the only one available. And likewise, there's one in Fife and there's one in Norfolk, and they have to ship it somewhere to get the damn thing done.
Jude, I've got to admit, I've never heard of it, and I'm serious, never heard of I thought pig's poo would be used the same way as the other poo. I know, like, I'm surrounded by farmland, and on certain days you can smell this. What do you call that, Jude, where they spread sewage on the fields? What do you call that? I don't know. There's a name for it. I don't know what the hell the name for it is. Slurry. That's the very word.
We get that. It's a terrible problem, but it raises all sorts of questions, Pat. First of all, the fact that there are so many pigs, and that there's so much pig meat in one form or another being shipped to Britain, does make a bit of a laugh of this terrible protocol that has landed us in this situation. Where we can only export tons and tons and tons and 1.5 million.
We can export tons of shit, but we can't bring in any sausages.
I think, Pat, you have summed the situation up so well. I will now retire gracefully. Thank you, Pat. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Good luck to you. Have a good weekend.
Right.